A lot of older homeowners are saying the same thing right now. The market feels uncertain, so we're just going to wait. I'm Michael Wright, a realtor who specializes in seniors housing transitions. In today's episode of Aging in the Right Place, we're talking about how this market is actually behaving in Oakville and Halton and what it means for people trying to decide whether to move or to stay put.
Michael, a lot of homeowners and families are saying that the market's kind of crazy right now. The market is confusing, it feels unsettling, so they're choosing to wait to the right time to sell. Have you been hearing this?
Yeah, there is a lot of confusion in the marketplace for not only the people I deal with, sort of that older marketplace, but younger people too. They're trying to get a footing on what's going on. But the beauty is, history always repeats itself, and it teaches us, what's happening in the marketplace, and it's not unusual for any market to correct itself when it's gone into one extreme or to the other.
When someone says to you, we're gonna wait until it's the market calms down, or it's a better time to sell, what are you hearing under that? What's under that phrase that they're saying?
Well, in many of the talks we do together talk about it is that people haven't made that decision on why they want to move. And sometimes we use the market conditions as an excuse not to really drill down and make a move decision. It's always convenient to say, I'll wait till a better time. But really, as we age or, approaching or in retirement, it becomes needs driven and not so much housing requirement driven.
Right, so what do you think they're afraid of? Are they afraid of getting something wrong? Is that what's holding them back?
Yeah, there is, as I talk about it, as many of my talks go on is, why don't we make decisions? And we've talked about this before, is denial. I don't need to make a change, and then there's that lack of information. I'm not getting all the facts, so I can't make a good decision. And then also, we get overwhelmed with just thinking about it. Many clients, they go out maybe to an open house and they say, this would be a perfect house for me to retire in. And as they drive home, they get overwhelmed with the whole process.
Right.
And they get into their home and say, oh, we don't want to do anything, because it becomes too overwhelming. And I talk a lot about it's fear. I mean, there's a million fears that go along with it. Should I buy? Should I sell first? Should I, is it the right time to move? Am I going to the right place? And these things just magnify themselves. And that's why I'm always talking about, this transition is a process that we have to plan for.
I mean, you've been a realtor through very many different markets. Without getting too much into the numbers, how would you describe how this market is behaving right now?
Well, let's look at, why we bought that first home. When you were out with your realtor at any time, the realtor never said to you, this is a great investment, it's going to go up 10 or 20% a year. The realtor said, it's a great neighborhood, it's a great home, it's got a great yard. You bought the structure, not the investment potential. So we always have to look at, it's not a commodity, it's a home that served a purpose. And when we decide to move, we're going to another home that will meet our needs.
Right. We've had a conversation similar to this before, and you said that this moment in the market reminds you of an earlier time in your career. I think you mentioned the 80s. What feels familiar and about this and what people are reacting to this market then, compared to that you're mentioning?
I guess in my career and just being around real estate, I know my parents, they sold in 1974, and the market was booming then, and then they introduced capital gains tax and the market dropped off. In 81, the market was very buoyant, and then we had the interest rate spike in 82, so prices went down. And then, we had from 83 to 89, we had a very buoyant market. Prices were jumping daily, just like it has been over the last little while. And then the market changed, so there's always ebbs and flows in every marketplace. But again, real estate has always been a long-term hold. It's a place to live. When I used to, people say, I could rent for cheaper, and it's costing more money to own. But it was really forced savings, because at the end of 25 years, when your mortgage is paid off, you have an equity position.
What did you learn back then about how people make their decisions in certain markets?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people, to make their decisions, listening to the news or reading the newspapers, and everything's bad because bad news sells better than good news. And there's people that are, taking a beating in this marketplace, but a lot of this was driven by greed. You hear about condo prices dropping 30-40%, but that was due to a lot of speculation in the marketplace. A lot of people were getting to homes because they felt they'd be get left out of the marketplace. Instead of making a positive decision or a positive plan, it was very rushed. I've got to do it now. So again, it's just people taking a breather and seeing where they are today.
So if the market itself isn't the real issue, what do you think is keeping people stuck in their current situation?
Well, a move is a huge thing, and it has many components in it. And unless you have a firm grasp on why you're making that move decision, you will never move forward because it is overwhelming. So for many people, taking the time to decide and plan what is the goals of that next move. Many of my clients in their late 50s and 60s are thinking about moving to a smaller town. And they want to move there because they less traffic, more community. But they have a plan. This is what we want to do. And it's not so much, buying in at the top of the market or the bottom, is I want to move for this, and this reason. I always say if my clients don't have 3 good reasons for making a move, they'll never do it because they'll always think of a reason why it's not the right time.
Yeah, it brings back to the phrase that you say a lot, move or not to move, right?
Yeah, this is the question. And, it's just really taking the time to make a solid real estate plan. Well, let's take a few minutes and think about why someone moves as we approach or in retirement. Many people are finding their homes becoming very expensive. Taxes are increasing, costs of maintenance are increasing. So again, they're looking to maybe free up equity or buy something smaller, so they have more disposable income. So really, the driver for those people is that a financial driver is not a real estate driver. So whether they sell their house for $1.2 million or $1.1 million, the idea is for them is to minimize those monthly expenses so they can enjoy the retirement. Other people, they want something more manageable, a smaller home because maybe they're thinking of the future where, a lack of mobility. So they want something more manageable. So again, the driver is not financial. That driver is house style, or is it going to meet my future needs? So again, if that person sells for $1.2 million or $1.1 million in the marketplace, they really their driver is that they want something more manageable.
You hear that?
Yeah. Lots of ducks.
They're coming in, eh? One thing people don't realize that I think you summed up pretty well on one of our last conversations was that not all parts of the market are behaving the same way, right? At a high level, what do you see people misunderstanding about the market right now?
It's the way they report the marketplace. Many times in the newspapers, radio, and TV, they're reporting new home sales, that's sales from the builders. So
new construction.
New construction. So I saw one stat where they sold 3 condominiums in Toronto. People are going, nothing is selling.
Yeah.
And you do get the impression nothing is selling because of that statistic. But really, if you're looking at the resale market, there's hundreds of homes sold every month. So let's get the reporting and understanding the figures that you're hearing. If you hear a market is down 30%, they might be reporting again on new condominiums that have come out there, and there's an oversupply of it. In many marketplaces, detached homes are holding their value and are not adjusting at all because there's just a high demand and short supply for that type of product.
This must be something that you hear all the time. What do you say to somebody that says, we're not doing anything until this market changes?
Well, let's say, I've heard that before. Let's wait for the market to go up. Again, from 1989 to 2011, the market was basically flat. There was probably a 3 or 4% increase per year. People, because you come out of a boom market, people think that it's just around the corner, that the market's going to spike up and I'm going to make an extra $100 or $200 or $300,000 on my home. If you look at a chart of home prices, it doesn't work that way. It takes a long time to recover supply. You have to get pent-up demand, and it's got to be financially sound investments out there. So again, if you think that the market's suddenly going to jump up, there's no factors out there that indicates that it's going to do that. And I hate to say it, but a market can still go down.
Well, how do you help those people feel like they're still in some sort of control and not just waiting for the air to blow in the right way?
It's having that definite goal. If I want to lose weight, and I look at a couple of diets online and I'm not really committed to it, I get distracted really easily. I'll start tomorrow, or this is my cheat day. But when I have that definite goal where I'm counting my calories, I'm doing my exercises, I have that plan that goes with that goal, it's a lot easier to implement. And it's the same in planning a housing move. If I just say, well, I'm thinking of making a move, well, you're just throwing that out into the universe and everyone will talk you out of it because the market's bad, the market's bad, the market's bad. But if I say, I'm going to move because I want to free up equity, I want to get something more manageable, and maybe I want to live in a smaller center, I have a definite goal and I have definite objectives I want to meet. So as you go through the sales process, when you're ready to hit a stumbling block, is you still have those objectives you want to meet, so it's easy to keep moving forward. If you don't have those goals, you'll get distracted and you probably won't follow through.
So if someone's listening right now and feels unsettled and doesn't know what to do next, doesn't want to make a mistake, what's the one thing you'd want them to remember right now from their chat?
So when people are feeling unsettled, most of the time is they don't have enough information to make a good decision, or they're overwhelmed with the process of even making a decision. So my recommendation is sitting down with someone like myself and working through a process, answering all those questions, committing a plan to writing, and then a timeline with that plan, so you're not feeling overwhelmed at any point in this whole process. And again, it doesn't have to be that plan could be implemented in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years from now. But when you have it written down and all the steps in place, it's a calming effect to have that all in place.
So this isn't about timing the market, right? Is it?
No, it's always, let's break it down into 2 manageable pieces. It's planning the transition and then implementing the sale. Okay, so we plan first where we're going to go, why we're going to move, and how is it going to be accomplished, and then the transaction. The market will dictate how much the house is worth. Your house at any point in time it's worth what a willing buyer will pay. So we can't focus on that. Can't focus on the something we can't control. But what we can do is we can control the process. We can control the goals, and then move with the marketplace. Adjust, when we're going to sell the home.
So I don't think we can avoid the market conversation. So if someone wants to understand how this current market affects their situation specifically, where do you think they should start? Where do you think they should start?
Well, first, let's start with a positive instead of a negative. Many clients I deal with have owned the home since 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. So instead of reading the newspaper and say the market's down 10% or 20%, let's look at it this way. From 1995 to today, your house is up 450%. You know, if you bought it in 2005, it's up 197%. So it's all perspective, right? You know, you can't say it's all bad when you suddenly have a 200% rise in the value of the home that you're living in.
So if what I'm hearing is situationally, you need to understand the market to make the plan. If you need to do a transaction now, but first you should have that plan. When do I want to retire? Do I need to sell the home? Do I want to stay in place? Without that plan, then the market really is just fear, right? And like you said, most newspapers, most videos you see online, it's about fear because you want to click on like, what am I going to lose? Everything I own?
I'm losing money. I'm losing money. That's always the case. Let's journey back to when you bought your first house. You know, you had that plan in place. You went to your bank and they told you how much you could spend. You sat with your realtor and said, what do you need? You needed 3 bedrooms. You wanted a nice lot. You had that defined plan. And, you know, even though this is a later life move, we still need that defined plan. We can't go around, I think I should move, I should do it someday, or maybe when the market's better. Is that we should have that concise plan because life changes very quickly, as we all know.
And like you're saying, the interest, like how much are you gaining in your home? Like if you need to do, most people that contact you, like you said, is because something happened, right? And they need to make that move either, you know, now, before, or like in a couple of months. If you need to make that move, what, in a couple of months, have you seen markets skyrocket? Not using, you know?
You know, the markets, again, there's always a huge external factors that make a market react in a weird or different way. I mean, we had COVID, we had interest rates dropped to next to nothing, we had a short supply, so we drove up house prices totally at a ridiculous level. I mean, again, if you look at a historical average, is real estate appreciates between 5.5 and 6.5% a year. You know, it's just a steady incline. So again, if you're waiting for this magical peak, I mean, people in '89, you know, the market dropped off, and they're going, well, I'm going to wait till next year. I'll wait till the next year. It was 2011 when that caught up. So you could be waiting a long time.
Yeah, and when you make a move, like you could be hurting your health, your happiness, your socialization, if you're not in the right home, just waiting for that next peak, right?
Yeah, and it's how much my house is worth shouldn't be the driver for my happiness.
Yeah.
And again, when we're approaching or in retirement, we want to be happy. We've saved all our lives. We want to enjoy things, and we want to make sure our real estate is meeting those needs. So again, it seems kind of ridiculous that we're letting the marketplace dictate our happiness instead of using that asset, which is the home, to make sure that we have an enjoyable retirement.
I mean, if I'm using myself as an example, sometimes it helps me to see the numbers. And if I was in somebody's shoes and they told me, okay, Alex, you need to make a move because of your plan. You want to make a move in 1 year, no matter what the market is. You could, if you wait more than a year, maybe you could see an increase of this percent or a decrease in this percent. And I can see in real numbers, hypothetical, educated guesses. Oh, am I really going to wait X amount of time past the time that I want to make a plan because I might gain X number? And that will help me understand, you know what, that number is not going to change much.
Yeah, and it's, it's the market change. And, again, as we look at 6% a year as, let's say, an average of a home prices increasing, like, it's not going to make a huge difference in where we are. It's just, if I'm 65 and I've retired, I want to make a plan that I'm really going to enjoy my life, not sitting and reading the papers going, is real estate going to come back? Is real estate going to come back? Because
can I move to the Bahamas now?
So again, we want,
can I buy that boat or whatever?
Life is short, it's, if you want to watch things appreciate, then invest in the stock market. But again, that can go down too. So, with this house is, let's make that plan and move forward. Let's make sure we're maximizing our happiness. And not waiting for, all the doomsday that real estate is never coming back or real estate's dropping in value. If you own your house for, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, your equity position is set, right? Yeah. And it shouldn't be dictating how you're feeling. We've walked around Old Oakville here, and looking at all the heritage signs, these homes have been here since the 1800s, and 40, 50, 60 families have gone through these homes. They've provided shelter, and people raise their kids in these neighborhoods, but there's always a time for transition, right? There's always a time that home's not meeting your needs. And again, it becomes needs driven, is that, I'm moving because, and I have that answer. So unless, the thing I want to leave everyone with, unless I can say I'm moving because X reason, I want to free up equity, I want something more manageable, I want to move to a smaller center, I want to move closer to my kids. Unless I have those goals in place, selling my home and fixing it up is a big job. And if you don't have a set goal, it's easy to say, I don't want to do this, it's too much work.
Yeah.
But when I have those goals in place, I can just check them off, go, yep, and I can move forward.
Yeah, the ocean becomes a lot smaller.
Yeah. How do you eat an elephant one piece at a time?
Exactly.
But I mean, for so many of our clients that, they've been in that house for 20, 30, 40 years, and they go, oh, I've got so much to do before I can sell it. And I know clients, and I'm fixing up my house to sell, Mike, and they've been doing that for 10 years. But really fixing up to sell is just, I'm putting off, I don't want to make a decision.
Right. Unless you have that target, you never know if you're going to hit it. You keep moving the theoretical target.
Oh, yeah. So, I got to paint here, I got to fix up, I'm going to do my back deck,
Yeah.
And that's a whole science. Fixing up a home to sell is a whole different discussion. But unless we know why are we worrying on the how to do it, right? So
people are still going to want to know what's going on in the market. So
what's going on in the marketplace?
We're going to be making a video explaining what right now is happening in the current Oakville market. Can you tell them a little bit about what we want to include in that video, and maybe ask them to leave a comment? And
sure.
So we can send them that link.
Let's look at broad base. This is a buyer's market. Just like, back in 2022, it was a seller's market. The seller could post any price and they were probably going to get it. In a buyer's market, they're making all the decisions. So in this type of market, two things happen. The homes that sell are the ones that are decked out to the nines, are fixed up to the max, or the ones that are perceived to be great value.
Yeah.
Those are the only two that are selling. If you're you can't be in a gray area here. So if I'm a consumer and I'm walking in a house and people have been upgrading it over the last 10 years, it's got new kitchens, new bathrooms, it's stunning. People are going, I want this.
Yeah.
If they go into a house that, has been lived in, it's not terrible, but it hasn't been updated. People say, I want to get this at a good price because I want to fix it.
I want a deal, or I want to move in and it's perfect. It's my dream.
And people say, it's not that simple, Mike. And I says, it is that simple, and that's what people are looking at. I had just sold a house, and it was, the bathrooms were renovated, the kitchen was renovating, but the rest of the house was tired.
Yeah.
And every consumer that came in it, I loved the bathrooms, loved the kitchen.
What happened to the rest?
But, they saw the rest of it going, oh, yeah. And eventually it sold at good value. I mean, the seller was happy because they had owned it for 20 years. They got a great price in their mind. And the consumer, they found that they got it at a price where they could fix it up, and it to the way they wanted it.
Right.
We've been talking about it, and on our ongoing series it's all about education. Because we'll be talking a lot more about denial, but that lack of information stops us from making a good decision. So we're going to give the information out there. We're going to talk about pricing and strategies and maybe what things to fix up if we're going to move forward with the move. But again, we want to make this a logical process. So again, just keep in touch with us, and the new videos will come out. And if you have a question, or if you have something that you want to ask, please put in the comments and we'll get back to you, and we'll try to create a video on that question if it's something that a lot of people want to hear about.
Yeah, so ask us for that market update in the comments, and we'll share that link when it's ready. And another little beautiful walk.
Yeah, it is stunning, and that we're making this video just after Christmas, so I think I've been eating for like 3 days. so it was good to get out for a walk, and good to see
Lake Ontario in the back.
Yeah, we got I don't know if you can hear the geese going.
Oh yeah.
It's quite an thing, but it's great walking around the neighborhood with you, Alex, and I know you're heading up north to see some more family, so have a great trip, and let's continue our journey and making plans for the future.
Sounds good. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody.